As the clock strikes 10:45 a.m., a typical morning shatters into pandemonium. A violent explosion tears through a downtown shop, its force so powerful that it destroys about half a block of businesses, shattering glass and debris on unsuspecting pedestrians. But this is only the beginning. Just moments later, a second blast erupts at Woody's appliance store, not far from the original explosion. Flames and fear spread across the small town, making everyone, including NASA, curious to solve the mystery of the explosion's cause. Hutchinson, Kansas, a town nestled along the Arkansas River, is known as Salt City due to its historic salt mines. With its population of just over 40,000, Hutch, as the locals call it, thrives on rich natural resources, including hard wheat and oil. But beneath its charm, danger lurks. January 17th is a typical day like any other. People go about their morning routines. Nothing is out of the ordinary until firefighters receive a call. There's been a devastating explosion downtown, the cause unknown. As they rush to the scene, they're greeted by scenes of destruction. Fires rage, debris scattered everywhere, and panicked people run for safety. Glass from the shattered shopfront windows spread as far as the eye can see.
The last thing I remember was like a rumble, like thunder, and I looked up and the ceiling tiles were all falling down.
Smoke and flames pour from the back of the decor shop building, darkening the sky with billowing clouds. Firefighters rush to the scene, swiftly setting up their ladders and spraying torrents of water onto the blaze. Initially, they believe a broken gas line is the cause of the fire and promptly shut off the supply. But the fire stubbornly rages on. Emergency personnel realize that the gas source isn't local, and more worryingly, they have no control over it. Even though there is nothing but cinders left from the explosion site, firefighters finally have to admit defeat. Fortunately, the injuries are minor, but the property damage is extensive. Then, as dusk sets in, something even stranger happens. Geysers of natural gas and salt water begin erupting in various locations around Hutchinson, some as high as 30 feet. They are primarily on the east side of town, a few miles from the initial explosion. 2 of these geysers are now on fire. Panicked city officials are scrambling for answers. Soon after, contractors figured out the origins of these dangerous geysers, tracing them back to Hutchinson's industrial past. In the 1800s, prospectors discovered vast salt deposits underground, paving the way for the region's salt industry. Miners used solution mining to extract the salt by drilling deep wells. They then injected water into these wells to dissolve the salt. That brine solution was then pumped back to the surface and refined. As mining expanded, it created many large underground cavities. But as time passed and mining operations moved or ceased, many of these wells were simply abandoned. Since then, the hollowed-out salt formations have become some of the nation's most secure storage facilities. It's where Hollywood keeps its historic artifacts, like the original films of Star Wars and The Wizard of Oz. But besides memorabilia, they are also storing something much more threatening: billions of cubic feet of natural gas. As the city scrambled for answers on how to fight the gas leaks, disaster struck again the very next day. This time, an explosion rocked a mobile home park on the east side of town. The odorless gas had been seeping into one of the trailers, and the skirting, meant to insulate the home, had inadvertently trapped it inside. When someone started cooking, the gas ignited, resulting in a devastating blast that claimed the lives of an elderly couple. By evening, the town was plunged into full-blown crisis mode. It felt as though the very earth had turned against Hutchinson, leaving everyone in a state of dread, not knowing where or when the next explosion might happen. Emergency teams evacuated nearly 200 homes and 40 businesses in the affected areas. Residents left their homes with little more than the clothes on their back, unsure when or if they would return. But even fleeing was complicated. The explosions also created sinkholes throughout the area, and rail traffic was brought to a halt to avoid stirring up the gas. Every moment felt like a ticking time bomb, especially to officials attempting to identify the source of the gas leaks. Investigators soon zeroed in on an area 7 miles northwest of Hutchinson, the Yagi storage field. It was originally opened in the 1980s to store propane gas in deep, steel-lined wells. When financial issues led to its closure, the wells were partially sealed with concrete to prevent leaks. Then, in the early 90s, the Kansas Gas Service took over the facility. They reopened the caverns and converted them from storing propane to storing natural gas. Since then, the facility has grown substantially. It could hold enough natural gas to heat 50,000 homes a year. But this sophisticated operation came with a risk. On the day of the disaster, roughly 15 minutes after the first explosion happened, technicians at Yagi noticed a dramatic drop in pressure in one of the storage wells. As they looked into the pressure records, they made a concerning discovery. The well had been leaking on a low level for at least the past 3 days. When refilling the cavern on January 14th, technicians had noticed a minor pressure drop but treated it as just a routine issue with the gas cooling and condensing. So they kept pumping in more gas, about 80 million cubic feet over the next 2 days. That's equal to the capacity of about 12 large gas carriers. A day after the explosions, the owners, K-Gas, told city officials about the leak, realizing it coincided with the timing of the explosions and fires in Hutchinson. In the immediate response, the company deployed over 100 workers to search the city for gas leaks. They went door to door, street by street, using handheld and truck-mounted sniffer devices to detect gas traces. Meanwhile, excavations in the basement ruins at Woody's appliance shop uncovered a forgotten brine well. This well had originally been drilled for a hotel spa to pump out hot, mineral-rich salt water, known for its therapeutic benefits. As the crisis unfolded, the Kansas Geological Survey was called in to assist with the investigation. They immediately started taking soil samples, conducting surveys, and measuring gas emissions. Their main goal was to find the source of the leak and understand how the gas traveled so far. It took them back to the Yagi storage field. They used tools like thermal imaging to detect heat from escaping gas and ground-penetrating radar to map underground features. Also known as thumper trucks, vibrating plates send seismic waves into the ground, creating images of the rocks below. Similar to a medical ultrasound, the method helped reveal possible paths for gas migration. Recognizing the complexity of the situation, NASA was called in to help. Using its thermal imaging capabilities, NASA conducted aerial surveys over Hutchinson and the surrounding regions. The high-resolution images showed hotspots as well as gas leaks that could not be seen from the ground. But NASA didn't stop there. It also used radar from planes and satellites to monitor ground movement and detect sinkholes. Sensors were also deployed to locate trace amounts of methane. The two agencies' findings were both enlightening and alarming. Gas was moving through underground layers, old salt mines, and wells. It was this network of pathways to the surface that made the leaks so hard to contain. The best solution was found to be vent wells to provide a controlled escape route for the gas. So, in a race against time, workers drilled a series of wells at strategic points along the gas leak. They then controlled the gas at the surface by burning it off. This was much safer than letting the gas accumulate and risk further explosions. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear how the gas could escape in the first place. When K-Gas took over the Yagi facility, they had to reopen the caverns, which meant drilling out the concrete plugs that sealed the wells. During that process, the drill bit is believed to have hit a piece of metal, damaging the casing of well S1. When inspecting a video of the caverns inside, a geological consultant described it as looking like a kitchen knife cutting into a can. The escaping pressurized gas made its way to higher geological layers, where it spread in all directions and seeped into abandoned brine wells. That would explain the saltwater gas geysers around the city. It took more than a month for flares to burn off the estimated 143 million cubic feet of gas that escaped from storage. The explosions contaminated soil and groundwater, worsened by firefighting chemicals, and caused long-term health risks. Air pollution from burning gas released methane and smoke, affecting residents' health for weeks. In response, safety measures were reevaluated. Regular testing of water, soil, and air was also implemented. For the affected residents, their battles were just beginning. The initial explosion had gutted 2 businesses and damaged 26 others. Several major lawsuits were filed against K-Gas's parent, One Oak Incorporated, and its subsidiaries. The owners of the gutted businesses received $5.25 million. Then, $5 million was awarded to residents in a class action lawsuit for damages. And the family of the couple who died at the mobile park also settled a multi-million-dollar lawsuit out of court. Poor oversight and maintenance set the stage for disaster. Technicians noticed pressure drops before the explosions, but didn't investigate. This neglect, along with regulatory failures by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, led to the catastrophe. In response, lawmakers pushed for stricter regulations on underground gas storage facilities. For the residents of Hutchinson, the road to recovery was long and tough. The downtown businesses were never rebuilt. The mobile home park was closed, and the Yagi Field was shut down, but not before drawing down all the residual gas still stored. The 2001 explosions in Hutchinson changed the town's landscape forever, showing that sometimes the greatest threats are the ones we can't see. Watch this episode next if you found this video interesting. Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.